What up, y'all? Welcome back to the Get It podcast, where we get it every day. You guys are coming back into a great conversation. We're going into some audio clips that we got from the deep dive bar discussions that me and Chad had. And speaking of Chad, why don't I let everybody introduce themselves? Let's start with you.
All right, I'm Chad. I also was at that bar.
What's up? It's Ryan. I was not at that bar, but I'm here.
And of course, our special guest host filling in for Selena.
Hi, everyone. This is Bianca. I was also not at that bar, but I am a third grade teacher and community organizer, and I'm happy to be here.
All right, so let's not waste no space. Let's get into the issues. Here we go. Chad, when we were out there doing this deep dark dive bar, we also talked to the bartender, and we were talking about issues. And we asked specifically what kind of issues did she care about most and did she want to hear about once they got the message out. And we wanted to see if there was some kind of issue that would really get her involved in things. Let's cut to that clip. Is there any issue that you care about enough that if one candidate spoke about it, it might make you vote?
No, I don't think so, honestly.
Really?
No.
Is there anything at all that would possibly make you get to the ballot box?
I couldn't think of something off the top of my head, no.
Really?
No.
Okay, so I wanted to make sure that we gave Ryan a chance, who picked that clip for a reason, I'm sure. Ryan, what was that reason?
Well, okay, I'm trying to keep my snark out of this one.
No, please, bring it in.
So she says, what issues? I'm like, healthcare, LGBTQ plus rights, abortion rights, discrimination laws, lack thereof. Like, I could go on forever. So the thing about it is, in the grand scheme of things, what you have to do is take 4 or 5 issues, things that you care about, things that affect you. Going back to kind of what you said, there are things that affect your everyday life, whether you like it or not, believe it or not. And you take those issues and you find which politicians are saying what you want them to say about that, or are in alignment with what you're thinking about. But just not believing that there's any issues that affect you at all is, I don't know, And
I think that goes back to, like, what we were saying, like, what are our elected officials, like, the people in power, what are they doing to bridge that gap for people, right? Like, it's impacting their life, no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. Them not realizing how it impacts them and how it involves, like, politics and all that, I don't necessarily think that that's their fault so much so. Whose fault I really think it is the people in power, right? Like, they need to do a better job of bridging that gap and showing people, like, look, this is what you care about. Here's how it matters in politics.
I agree, but I disagree. Because what I think about is, like, you cannot depend on them to tell you what it is that you need to care about.
They're always going to try
because
to
that's the problem. Exactly. That's the problem in general. So the people that are voting and that are misinformed, it's because you're listening to them tell you what you need to vote about. Yeah. You yourself need to figure out what those issues are, and then you go to those politicians. Yeah. I don't want to hear shit from Johnny Jack who's not talking about what, you know what I mean? I don't want to hear it. And you're not going to tell me what to believe. Like, you know what I mean? Figure out those issues for yourself and work backwards. Don't work the opposite way, because you'll continue to be misinformed and you'll go down that rabbit hole.
Well, and I think part of it, so if you watch the actual clip of that, I'm pretty sure that my jaw hit the floor of that bar. Because to me, like, I think you can hear the moment that my heart rips in half when she says that, if you turn it up loud enough. But in somewhat weirdly her defense, I think that the idea of issues has gotten tainted through just insane amounts of corruption. Look at things like the Patriot Act. You've got a country in fear, and they put riders in there with shit like the sneak and peek law.
Right.
And, you know, I know that sounds like kind of weird and conspiratorial, but it's a thing that they do. You know, so it becomes, not that I think that those specific things informed her worldview, but I think that they kind of work toward disenfranchising the population overall, because people are like, well, yeah, no, they're going to pass something that seems good, and then all of a sudden, you know, my wages are going to get cut, or you know, yeah, sure, they want to put more funding into schools, but then my property taxes go up, and like it's that is true, but it's like this lack of transparency, and that's I think what really puts voters off of even trying.
I want to give her a break too, like you're saying. I mean, I don't want to put everything on the individual, but there is something called personal responsibility, and we are all warriors in this thing. And if we don't take up our piece on this puzzle, we're all fucked. Yeah. So you have to. I mean, if I could reach you the microphone and give you a sense of obligation to get engaged with these things, just try to vote. Just try. Even if you don't know, I go in there all the time. I don't know who the fuck I vote for. I'm just like, this is a person of color, this person's color, that's a Democrat, this name sounds good. I don't give a fuck. Just as long as I'm in the game, baby.
Well,
I think like
that's a starting place.
So you made a good point as far as like you're right. Like elected officials, relying on them, they're gonna give their own bias, like what they want to give you, right? So then that made me think about like institutions like the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, or nonpartisan institutions, right? Like they want people's votes. Then what are they doing to get it? What are they doing to reach out to populations that aren't voting? And are they asking themselves why? Or do they just or are they just pushing certain politicians that they want, right? And so then I think it falls on like institutions like that where, or organizations where like, we need organizations like that, right? Because otherwise, like, how are people going to, so then we want the individual to take personal responsibility. I agree with that. But at the same time, how can they do that if they don't even know where to go and where to get that information from? So
wait, but we're living in the, you know what? Every Friday night, I don't hear people saying like enough clubs haven't talked to me to go to their club.
Exactly.
They find a fucking way to go out there.
That's what I'm saying. You will stand in line. You'll stand in line to get tickets for a concert that you want to see.
Well, we got the whole entire ass internet right now.
Exactly.
Well, you can find the information. I get that. So because I have a little different approach than Roy when going to the polls. I'm not so much on the cool last name. Bam! I actually spend like.
Hey, but I have a good time when I'm.
It sounds fun because mine is going to be way fucking nerdier. So I sit there for a week and I do like little deep studies and I make my little vote notes. Yeah. And sometimes if I don't know if I'm between a few politicians, I'll walk in with like the 3 names of the people running and little bullet points of their issues. Because I am a huge loser with too much time on my hands. So that's my approach. And I'd be happy to share those.
That's not the reality for people. Like, and I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Like, I'm not saying that there's no way, but at the same time, like, some people just do not have the time to that. I feel like I'm very passionate about this stuff. So yeah, I'm going to take the time to look into like the politicians I vote for, right?
Right.
But I'm not going to expect that from every other person, right?
Sure.
Like,
and for them to know where to
go,
go,
you're not going to be able to have time.
And
to
let's not forget, there's some long ass ballots, man. In November, it was like I think you had to go through almost 6 or 7 of those little internet pages, or how do you call them, digital pages? And it was a lot of shit. So like maybe I can know the first 3 pages, but I can't know who the candidates are.
I think that goes back to what you said though, kind of the spider web effect, right? So like you can't hold each and every politician accountable, right? And not everyone's going to align with. Think about your friends. Do they say everything that you agree with? Their beliefs are not everything that you agree with. Absolutely. However, they are very close, which is why you hang out with them.
Yes.
Same with the politicians.
About that being close on the issues, there is clip number 6, which Bianca picked, and this is going to talk a little bit about education and healthcare. Let's cut to it.
Let's look at our poverty rates in San Antonio, look at our quality health care in San Antonio, and look how that impacts people. And so those are things that I will actually instruct people. You look at pay for teachers, pay for educators, for those individuals that have small children. Look to see specifically how these individuals are being paid. Those are reasons why you need to vote.
Bianca, go ahead, tell us more. Why'd you pick that clip?
I mean, he hit it right on the head. You mentioned pay for teachers, right? Like, as an educator, people think, oh, we have it so good. You have summers off. You have, like, spring break. And, like, if I didn't get those, I would literally, like, lose my shit. Like, straight up. We earned that break, like, the first month we're in school. Yeah. Like, honestly, we do. Because here's the thing. We're not working. Let me tell you something. I teach from 8 a.m. till 3:30. But then my job of preparing for that class starts after that and before. Right? Exactly. So my job doesn't ever fully end. Can I tell you how many times I've lost sleep at night because of one of my students that I really care about? Because of things that I see every day in my classroom with my students and their families. I take that shit personal, and I care, and I'm not the only one. Like, so many of our teachers are investing so much of their time outside. It's not just an 8 to 3:30 job, right? Yeah. Hell no. And so we get paid, everyone's like, oh, you get paid a decent salary and you get all this break. I'm like, no, but even during those breaks, we're working. I guarantee you that. This summer is not like me chilling. Like, we're working. And so, like I mentioned earlier that I am having to pay for my own paper. I'm having to pay for my own school supplies. That comes out of my own money. And we get to take, at the end of the year when we file our taxes, we get a $250 break. $250 is nothing compared to what I've spent in my classroom.
Yeah.
Wait, but when I hear a lot of teachers talk about pay, the second part of the conversation never comes into play, which is how do you figure out how that is that accountability-based pay? Is that progress-based pay?
I think
What
it's
is it? Are we
years,
just
right?
talking about overtime?
So, I mean, like we recently got, I think there's like some type of raise that's going to be coming into play in the
Yeah.
next year, right? Great. I think there should be more, of course, right? But I think accountability is tough because then you think about, there's accountability for like standardized testing, right? And in my opinion,
It gets
I'll
muddy. Yeah.
keep that but let me just say that I don't think it's right that
Yeah.
our schools are being funded and our teachers are being paid based on the scores of these tests. Because these tests do not depict and aren't a true reflection of our kids' abilities, right? And like the growth. It ignores all these other factors that go into our kids' education. Yet that's like one of the main factors that is taken into account for when it's deciding the funding of our schools.
But then what would be the alternative? Because then you're talking about, that there's bad teachers. There are most certainly bad teachers,
Right.
especially in these underserved areas. So when we're talking about them, how do we know that we're weeding out the bad ones if we have no kind of
Well,
standard?
the biggest thing though with standardized testing, and I always say that I was taught how to take a test. You weren't taught the material. And here's the thing, in school, it was like my teacher would say, we have 3 weeks to learn this. If you don't learn this, you get left behind. And guess what? That's it for you. You can go to tutoring, whatever. But we need you to pass this test for us to move on. So we taught you how to take this test, how to scratch out the ones that don't apply to what you're thinking, but that does not teach you critical thinking skills.
And it also doesn't make a teacher a good teacher because they can get good test
Exactly.
scores. And I think that sure, there are bad apples in any profession, right? But I think 9 times out of 10, we do have great teachers.
Oh, that's too
And-
high. 9 times out of 10.
No, it's not too high.
In any occupation, that's too high. You can't tell me 9 out of every 10
No.
plumbers are good.
8 out of
No.
10. 8 out of 10.
I will stand by that because I work with teachers every day and not just at my school. On a district level, I work with them. And in my opinion, 9 times out of 10, we do have teachers who are giving everything, like all of their energy into this classroom. However, of course, you're going to have your bad apples. And for those, I think there should be like a holistic approach to the way that they decide whether, I mean, we have systems in place to, I'm trying to think of what it's called, evaluations. We have evaluations. People are in our classrooms all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I could speak for myself. Like, there was someone in my classroom once a week, at least, at the
You were
minimum.
that bad a teacher?
No, and it should be like that. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It should be like that because I think that that's an obligation of our leadership. It
I feel
should
like
be
we'll
like
open
that.
up a whole nother can.
Now, and let me ask you guys, just before we go, or before we move on this issue, is there anything you guys want to say about the issues of education or healthcare in the underserved areas?
Yeah, healthcare, I think, sure, underserved areas and literally this entire country. I think right now, healthcare, that's one of the number one issues across the board, across parties. I mean, like anecdotally, the other day, I had a tooth fall out at work. And I went, shit, all right. I guess this is my life now. And I moved on and I just carried on with my day. Because what the fuck am I going to do about it? That's where we are. And I have a good job, and I make okay money. Enough that you would think, oh, well, he can get a tooth fixed. Hell no, you can't.
No, you can't.
It is insane. And people can't afford insurance. People can't afford. And, right now at my restaurant, we're working on coming up with like an HMO in-house where we're going to do like kind of a microcosm of single payer where we're just basically everybody's going to kick in like X amount of dollars from a paycheck. And we've got like a doctor we're talking to come and like try to take care of our staff. That's where we are.
That's
so
interesting.
healthcare is as broken as it could possibly be.
Ryan, do you have something you want to say about this?
I just feel like the problem with healthcare in America is that it's a business, so it's not about healing. It's about keeping you sick. It's about sustaining you, right? So we want to keep you alive for as long as possible, but we're not trying to heal you. So once we made healthcare into a business, that's a problem. It's broken now. It's going to be broken forever until we. And the thing about that is, I hate to say it, but once we take kind of the capitalist view out of that, then we have doctors that are not going to be getting paid what they're getting paid. And all these people that are going to school to be RNs are not going to keep going to school to be RNs. You know what I mean? Not only that, there's two sides of it, right? So I have a friend that's an RN. One thing that he said, they work 16-hour shifts. So not only that, a lot of 9 times out of 10, those mistakes that are made are because lack of sleep, right? So we work them to death, number one. Number two, on the other side of the spectrum, I had a friend who rode to the ambulance. A 1.5-mile ride to the ambulance costed him $900.
Oh my God.
So it's, you know what I mean? It's two sides of the spectrum. It's like, you can't win. And with America, it's a problem.
Totally disagree that you can't win. I cannot disagree.
You can't win.
I totally disagree. Because we are the only ones who don't have some form of single payer.
Well,
And
yes.
it's not like the doctors in other countries are, just living hand to mouth.
Right.
They're saving, we spend billions of dollars a year just on clerical bullshit with insurance.
Right.
So you get rid of insurance, and all of a sudden you've freed up a lot of money. And the idea that like somehow you can't fix that system because, well, then no one's going to want to be a doctor. Horseshit. No one's going to make money. Horseshit. We have models that exist in this world right now that we can go look at. And some of them, sure, they don't work very well.
Right.
But a lot of them work fantastically.
But the thing is that
and we're America,
healthcare-
damn it. If we can't do it.
It's intertwined in so many other factors, though.
I
That's
know.
what I'm saying.
Untangle
you
that shit.
You could untangle healthcare, and then you've got a whole nother web that you've got to untangle.
What?
Right.
Hey,
The
both of those
pharmaceutical
things,
industry?
though, well, come on, like that's fucking nothing. You
yeah,
say
exactly. I'm telling
No,
you.
that's what I'm talking about.
Like,
the largest lobby group in all of the DC is definitely relevant when it comes to that.
Right.
Yeah, and you've got them charging 400% more for the same fucking medication they have in
Right.
other countries because the government actually holds them and regulates them.
Hey, we're out here in San Antonio. How often have you heard people like their emergency healthcare plan is if shit goes real south, go to Mexico and get a doctor or see a dentist, right? I mean, man, I just heard that.
happening
My
over next
mom
week?
got her braces from Mexico. I remember we would travel like once a month to Mexico so
To-
she could get her braces. Yeah.
That's where I got my ass shots. Just kidding.
I was like, that might not be kind of. That's a little off topic.
Let's bleep that one out.
But yeah, I don't know. I just think it's super muddy, right? It's super muddy. Not only that, kind of that 16-hour workday that doctors are held, that standard that they're held to. Sure. Just in general, the whole healthcare system is muddy. It's gross. It's disgusting. My aunt was in Vienna. She got sick. She went to the doctor, like free. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
And
You're good.
and that's the thing is like, you're going to have them work the longer shifts because you want to have less people on staff.
Exactly.
Because of the capitalist aspect of our healthcare system.
Mm-hmm.
So if you stop worrying about forcing these profits through, you start looking at, okay, well, let's get more people on, have them work reasonable shifts. Doctors will be fine. They're still going to make money. It's not, there are doctors right now, like the one we're talking to for the restaurant, who have figured out like, oh, well, shit, if I get rid of the insurance aspect of all of this, I can just, for $100 a visit, we can do a whole like 5-point wellness panel. They can do like lab tests, all this shit,
Right.
because they don't have to spend their time and money on that clerical insurance bullshit.
Yeah, agreed. But I also think privatizing it would be hard.
Well, look, no, don't
Maybe
do that.
yeah.
Don't go into
Yeah.
that.
We're talking about privatizing shit.
Well,
It's already privatized.
Let's talk about something else that's broken and needs some fixing. There's a lot of families out there where people don't even have an opportunity to see an example of what it looks for somebody to go out and vote. So we're going to go to clip 4B and talk to Francis.
Break the damn cycle, like break it. No more of this, I'm not gonna vote because my family don't do it and I'm not gonna do it because, no, like stop it. Like what do you wanna do? Like what are you gonna do? What's your purpose? Like do you wanna vote? Is your voice gonna matter? You think about it, that's your decision. That's what I'm teaching my kids to do, that's what I'm doing.
Ooh, first of all, I want to say the reason I fucking picked this was twofold. Number one, the message is brilliant. And number two, that chick Francis was one bad motherfucker. Let me tell you.
Shout
she
out
was
to
like,
my girl
oh my God.
Francis. Oh, man.
Yeah. She looks like she can wear some Jordans and a fucking tank top and be just comfortable. You know what I mean? She's one of us for
she was
sure.
bad as shit.
So I appreciated that because she must have seen something along the way and then she said to herself, like, nah, fuck this. I'm going to do it my own way. And now she's teaching her kids how to do it. Did anybody here come from a family that didn't vote?
No.
Oh, shit.
I can't.
So
really-
we're all come up in
yeah.
privilege.
Kind of. No, I mean, I had like one side of the family, Roy, you know my family, like
Yeah.
very, very civically engaged. Like, I mean, to the point where I knew I was going to vote as soon as I turned 18, right?
Hey, Bianca's part of, just so y'all know, LULAC royalty. So it's no bullshit. Yeah.
I don't know what that
But then I have So LULAC is a national civil rights organization for the Latino community.
Okay.
One of the
Beautiful.
largest and
Okay.
fastest growing organizations in the country.
Well, shit.
But
Educated me.
She's an educator.
She's
So-
a great teacher.
So on like one side, that was like my experience with my family. But then I do have my other side of the family that like never went to vote. I mean, I would have like debates with my tios, and they'd be like, "Oh, mija, well, just they're giving their reasons of like why they weren't going out to vote, or like, and so for me it was like I was able to see both perspectives, and luckily like for the other side of the family, like we were able to have those conversations. So I think
But
now
see-
I would say now like both sides of my family go out and vote.
That's beautiful.
Now,
and-
but was that because you were the catalyst to it all? Because you were there being a pain in the ass? And now
For
they
the
do
other
it?
side, yeah, it was. It was. I was definitely a pain in the ass.
So one person can turn a whole family into
Oh,
a
yeah.
group of voters.
Oh, of course.
if you're a big enough
See,
fan of
my,
that, sure.
Yeah.
I would say my experience was like kind of different, right? So my family's super civically engaged as well, and I can't remember one Thanksgiving dinner where we did not talk about politics for like 30 minutes and then go around like back and forth.
reality.
But what that did was that encouraged me. Like when I come to the table, I want to know what I'm talking about. So they mostly encouraged you, like, hey, you figure out what it is that you care about. You figure out the issues, because if at the dinner table when we speak about something and we ask you your opinion, you're gonna sound stupid if you don't know. You know what I mean? And not to like badger you in that way, but they kind of encouraged me to have my own opinion and to, my mom, every conversation ends with something about politics. So I feel like maybe that's why I kind of am this way, but I would say on the plus side, I was encouraged to have my own opinion and things like that.
Yeah.
And now, still to this day, I will speak about the things that I care about, and I don't care if you don't agree with me. We'll have a conversation, and like that's it.
And that's what we're doing here today,
Yeah.
Chad. What you
Yeah,
got?
well, and mine was a little different because my family voted, but they only voted in that big election every 4 years.
Yeah.
So it's like I spent an embarrassingly long amount of time in my life, in my childhood, thinking that the president just assigned everybody.
Right.
Like the city council must have been assigned by Bush, because I had no fucking idea
I love that
there
you
was
said
another. Yes, I'm very old. I had no idea. I'm on that north end of millennial, so I had no idea for for a good portion of my life, because that was the only election that mattered. That was the only one they ever got involved in, and at that point, they were only going to vote for a very specific party. Didn't matter who was in it. I won't tell you which one, but I'm in a different camp from the rest of my family in that regard. But and I think that's something that's important too, is letting it can't just be about that one election. And you got to kind of inform your family, like, hey, there's other shit going on. Every single year is an election year.
Right.
I was telling one of my employees that the other day, because he was talking about how I'm going to go vote in 2020. I was like, hey, there's one coming up before that, right? I was like, you can vote right now, dude. Like, you're registered, you're 18. And he's like, which one? I was like, well, there's this thing called a mayor right now.
Right.
So, it's about letting them know, like, there's more than just that one big issue. It's more than just what you're going to see on Fox and CNN and endlessly on Twitter.
Well, and it's like I've always believed that change starts at the local level.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's like,
Definitely.
that's never been more real than, especially, people lose hope on like a federal level. They're like, nothing's changing, nothing's
Exactly.
happening. I'm like, but you know what? You may feel that way, but something can and will change
your
on a local
community.
level, right?
Yeah.
And like those local elections, they matter so
That's
much.
where your
And
vote
oftentimes
matters
it's the
most.
most direct impact that we feel,
Yes.
right? And so,
Well, we're both from Harlandale, and in Harlandale, 50 votes can swing a school board race.
Oh my gosh.
And that's millions of dollars in
Right.
that budget. You know how much bribes you get? I mean, just go vote, dog. I'm just kidding. Well, yeah. Okay, let's not. I fucked up on that one. My bad, y'all. I should have kept that one kosher.
We do
But
not
let's keep
support
it moving.
bribes. That's not the official
We don't
position.
cut that out. We
of
don't
the GETIt podcast.
My bad.
no, but
Hey.
but it's true. Like, as far as 50 votes
Yeah.
swaying an election one way or the other, and that giving power to somebody to have power over a budget of
Right.
millions of dollars, right? And I
Exactly.
think,
And
it's
also,
just
I
direct
mentioned the
impact.
bribe thing for a specific reason, because when I was in Harlandale, like coming up as a young man, walking for the school board candidates, that's what they would talk about. So
Right.
I know that there are some people who are there because they're going to get that big brown bag from that one person, you know?
Yeah.
And so you got to figure out, like, in your own neighborhood, you can meet these people. They're close enough to you that you can go to the fucking corner store or you can go to the taco shop and you can see them and you'd be like, hey, what's up? You know, I heard you got this check from here or there. What's going on there?
Exactly.
If they pull out that brown bag full of money and start paying for shit.
Hey,
But it's
you
like-
get a bribe, you better share with the whole neighborhood. Robin Hood this bitch.
I just feel, imagine like being the one that caused that change because you went out and voted. Those are when your votes really matter, especially in local elections. It's craziest. And what you said about direct impact, it's so true because you can see the direct impact based upon taking one person out of office.
And even better if you can get yourself out to vote and then, you know, maybe the
Right.
next election cycle you take one more person and one more person.
Right.
You bring your whole family. Your whole family might be the reason why
Exactly.
someone
Yeah.
won, right? And I think like actually it was part of the reason, one of the reasons why I decided to leave like national politics. I was working for a national organization. I was kind of like fed up with working and feeling like I'm not seeing
Right.
much change, right? And I'm not saying that change can't happen. I know that it can, but I was ready for something more direct and something that honestly just quicker, right?
Yeah.
And so I was ready to come back to San Antonio, and I'm so glad I did, right? But that's what it's about. It's these local elections, they matter, and sometimes they're the most important elections.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we did so with that deep dive bar. We have one last clip to play from that, and this is Chad's pick. This is clip number 3, and let's go ahead and end on this note. It's going to be pretty good. Have you ever talked to somebody who doesn't vote, and what is the reason that you get most back from those people?
I have. It's difficult for me to hear that. Most of the time they think that their vote doesn't count. They say, you know, well, it's just one vote. And it's like, that's how math works. The 1 + 1, you know, it adds up. Yes, you do only get one vote, but it's very important.
Go ahead, Chad.
So I think it's obvious why I picked that one. That was fucking hilarious. I loved her. That's how math works. And you know, that is one of the things that you hear the most. And you're talking about a school board election being swayed by 50 votes, right? Well, I went and looked into it because you know, how math works made me laugh. And in 1964, Nevada U.S. Senate race, there were 135,000 votes cast, 48 vote difference between the two. That's for a fucking senator.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's to think like how many people that day were like, it's not gonna count. It's not gonna matter.
Yeah.
Hell, we're in Nevada. We're in Las Vegas. I'm gonna just spend that time, you know, at the casino. And you know, you have all these people who think that that these things don't come up on any sort of real level. I mean, from the school board to the Senate, it really is a numbers game.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, van loads of people to the polls, that kind of thing. You know, I was thinking like, because everything comes back to alcohol with me for some reason, and I was should probably get that looked at. And what I was thinking about was like doing like a voter pub crawl. Like we rent a party bus and we go to different polling locations with people in different districts, and we just hit a bar in each neighborhood, and you know, like it's like anything to
Chad,
just.
I'll be your first registrant.
Hell yeah. Anything to get those numbers up because it matters. They rely so much. Like the people that everyone bitches about, the politicians, everyone's like, oh, they're corrupt. They don't give a shit about me.
Vote against them.
Yeah, they count on you being disenfranchised and going, yeah, well, you know, my vote doesn't count. It's like, no, it sure didn't because you didn't do it.
Or in a bigger sense, what is it, the 2000 election where Bush won Florida by 537 votes and took the presidency? So it's like...
That one gets a little complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I left that one out for a reason. I get where
that
you're
gets
going.
into like electoral college and all that stuff. But in the grand scheme of things, yes, the biggest thing is we don't want your one vote to determine the whole election. So yeah, your one vote is not going to determine, and there's a reason why.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, I mean,
But you know, like that to go back to what you were saying about your family, all you have to do is be the one person who's standing up, and if you're that example, it'll free other people up to do it. And also, you know, if you're doing something and you can take like 1 or 2 people with you, there's a way that now it's a thing. Now we're doing something, and then other people want to do a thing. They want to be part of something, you know?
True.
But you just got to create that culture, and I think that's why this podcast is so important, and that's why I'm excited to be here. Before we go, any final thoughts, Ryan?
I mean, the biggest thing that's kind of resonating with me is the whole local election thing. Growing up, my mom always told me that change starts at home. So I have to throw that in there. That's my ending note. Shout out to Mom.
Bianca?
Yeah, change. I agree. everything that you just said. I think in general, someone tries to tell you that your vote doesn't matter, that your voice doesn't matter. It's bullshit. I promise you, you go out to vote, it's going to make a difference. And you go and bring out your friends, it will make a difference. But we can't, one person can't do it, like you mentioned, can't do it by yourself, but we can do it as a community, right? And that's what's important. It's like, let's come together. Let's do this.
Amen, Sister. Chad?
Yeah, I mean, I know that a lot of times we're talking about voting being on a Tuesday. This upcoming election in a few days, it's going to be on a Saturday. I don't know if this is going to air before that. It probably won't, but sometimes that does happen, and you can put on pants on a weekend, go out there, and just get your vote in, because honestly, there's nothing worse than somebody who just complains about the issues and then is like, I didn't vote because they all suck.
You're right.
Yeah.
And also, just to make sure that people know, you don't even have to wear pants to the polls.
You don't. That's why I was like,
let you in. I know for sure.
I didn't wear pants. So I was like,
well, that's a game changer for me. You think
You're
I'm
not going to miss an election?
Yeah. You think I'm not going to try that out in a few days? You're out of your mind.
yeah, I wore swim trunks, so yeah.
Hey, there you go. You can go into whatever.
Can
you
I do
want.
less than swim trunks?
Brother, don't tell us about it.
Yeah.
Keep the pictures to yourself, but you go do your thing. Just as long as you vote. All right. Hey,
What about
listen.
you, Roy?
For closing thoughts, I just think I think it's great that GET is helping us. So GET_Texas, that's going to be on Instagram or on Facebook. Look them up, GET Texas. GET has brought us together. We, with the exception of me and Bianca, we didn't have a relationship with one another, but now we're all people who are moving towards the same goal of getting people engaged, and that's only the beginning. So I like that. I like when points of light come together and try to get more points of light involved. So for me, that's the big takeaway. The specifics of any one issue I could give a fuck about, but I really want everybody to be giving a fuck about getting involved in general. So that's my goal, and I'm happy that we're doing it here together. I couldn't imagine a better group to be doing it with. So, okay, don't forget, look up GET_Texas on Instagram or GET Texas on Facebook. You can also check us out. I think we have a website, gettexasvoting.org, and you guys can check us out on there. You're going to really like it. It's a very cool thing. For you folks at home, we want to say thank you so much for listening to us here on the Get It podcast. We get it every day, and we hope you get it too. We'll see you next time.